Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I am on my way to pick up my kids from elementary school and thought I'd spend a few minutes with you to share a few thoughts in my mind. I've been dwelling on the idea, concept, the expression, now that I understand what happened to me. I think for a lot of us it really makes a lot of sense to frame it that way, because for a lot of us, whether it's specific events that happened in the church or in your home or something like that, or just the general overall experience of growing up in a Christian home, there really were things that happened to you that you didn't understand, and that for many of us it takes a long time to really grasp what did happen and how did it happen and what were the insidious ways in which messages got into our psyches and we never questioned them. What did it do to us? What did it deprive us of? What were the firewalls that it set up that should have never been set up? What were the ways that it directed our lives? And if we'd known better, we would have never let it have that power to direct us. But it did. And we were not just okay with it in some ways, but we were almost proud of it, What did happen to you? And for a lot of people, I think there are specific things that they've gone through that are very specific traumas, very specific memories. But whether it's that or something generic, you need to understand what happened to you. And in many ways, that starts with having the vocabulary to be able to really think through it and to put things into words, but also just the freedom to explore your pain, explore where you've been, what you've been through, think through it, listen to other people who've been through similar things and sort of glean from them the ways to connect the dots as to what happened. But I think like a starting point for me with all that has been the idea of acknowledging and validating your experience. For a lot of us, Christianity has been like a perpetual gaslighting experience. It really has been. And you've spent a lot of your time being told that what you've been through is not trauma, and being deprived of the tools to recognize abuse and trauma, so that when you finally begin to get those tools, it's like, oh my gosh, that has been my experience. That is what they did to me. That is how they hurt me. That is how they traumatized me. And it's a lot of steps. It's a lot of steps to think through it. It's a lot of steps to get to a point where you're really confident in your own thoughts. And of course, we're all trained as Christians to not be confident in our own thoughts, to be second guessing ourselves, and to be always leaning on not our own understanding. So to be able to really recognize the trauma, recognize your grief, recognize your feelings, maybe feelings of betrayal, betrayal by loved ones, parents, spiritual influences, church leaders, to really recognize that you feel betrayed, maybe betrayed by yourself. Like, what was I thinking? How could I let this happen for decades of my life? There's just so many ways in which these feelings are so painful, so difficult to identify, so painful to think through. And when you finally get there, it is so critical, so critical to validate yourself, to say this did happen, and it was painful, and it was significant. And I think for a lot of us, there's the ongoing need to validate the pain and the confusion, to say this really hurts. Christians often act like those of us who escaped are basically giving Christianity the middle finger and saying, ha, you're all idiots, and I'm free now, and I'm free to dance and enjoy my life. And regardless of what they think of that, they just think we're all out here celebrating, living it up because we escaped Christianity. And for many of us, that's not true whatsoever. We are in pain, and there's a lot of confusion as to what now. Don't minimize or deny what you've been through. What you've been through is significant. It's real. And the more that you act like it's no big deal, or you should just be fine now, the longer in some ways the healing is going to take. This is a real journey. You might find benefit in journaling it out, talking it out, saying what happened. You might not. You might find other ways that are effectively like a journal, writing poetry or songs or something. But name the specific hurts. Name the specific issues. Name steps of what happened. For many of you, even if you don't intend to do an interview on a channel like mine, it might help you to actually write out your story, like step by step by step. And not just what happened in your life step by step, but what was going on in your mind in those different steps. What were the emotional and psychological junctures, both while you were in it as well as on the way out. But when you do that, you begin to understand the dynamics of religious trauma, and you admit to yourself that you have endured severe psychological harm, like really psychological harm on a profound level, and you have left a very controlling, abusive system. It deprived you of your rights, deprived you of your autonomy, deprived you of basic information. You've left a place of guilt, a place of fear, a place that left you having difficulty trusting yourself. Understanding the dynamics of hypervigilance and these intrusive thoughts. And, for many of us, if they've been there for decades, just because you can acknowledge even really clearly, even those of you that can articulate it far better than I can, as to why Christianity is a false worldview and is mythology, even with that level of articulation, you can still have extremely intrusive thoughts, because this thing is it's woven into your psychological DNA. It's very, very real. It's very significant. And when you begin to work through that, and you also begin to recognize the psychological manipulation, the tactics that they were using, when you can acknowledge the power of indoctrination, like really understand it and acknowledge it, and say both this is how it works, but this is what specifically happened to me, where you were given the forced requirement of blind acceptance and the fear of questioning. It goes so deep, so deep. And when you understand the emotional control that they had over you, and in many ways, when I say they, I don't just mean the Christians or your parents or your pastors. I mean they, as in even the dead men who created and evolved Christianity. They had power over you, mostly through guilt and shame. But these tools of manipulation that made you feel so undeserving of anything good, and like you were just a beggar, daily needing the grace of God just to survive another day. And you were told to basically seek forgiveness for just existing, because you were born in sin and you added sin to it. You need to you need to seek forgiveness for just existing. And fear was used as a weapon against you. Eternal punishment, of course, eternal separation, eternal darkness. The idea that your selfishness was going to basically become this monstrosity that was going to overtake every part of you, and eventually become the biggest part of you. You would basically become your own God, and you would worship your own self in selfishness to the point that it would consume you, like as if that were the fire. And you'd basically just spend your life, your eternity, complaining that you didn't get all of your rights, and that you were unhappy that you're not on the throne, and so forth. And just you're so afraid of yourself, and you've lost your autonomy and all that. When you understand the dynamics of the loss of autonomy, where you've surrendered your identity, you've sacrificed yourself, even where choices that you could make in life are presented sort of as like, it's up to you, it's yours to make, but it's also within the confines of God's sovereignty and His predetermined will. You end up to the point where you're not even really living. Someone else is living through you. And I don't, of course, mean Jesus. If I can anthropomorphize it. The concept of the biblical worldview is living through you, and it's taken over. It's completely taken over. It's taken over your identity, and you're not yourself, and you didn't even know it, and you didn't have a choice at all. And you're in that context. You're in a state of constant self-policing. You're always monitoring your thoughts and your actions for sin, or a bad attitude, or a selfishness, or some kind of lack of zeal for the Lord. These things, they take over your whole identity, such that when you do leave, the leaving itself is a trauma. You are grieving the worldview. You're grieving the false certainty. Like, you just know that you have the truth and everyone else doesn't. And even just the idea for a lot of us, at least at first, where you let go of the idea of absolute truths, that was hard. Letting go of absolute truths is a painful thing. And it's such a comfort zone when you've got it. Both in the sense that I just know in my head I've got the answers, but collectively the people all around me are saying, yep, we've got all the answers. And everyone else that stands against our worldview, we can just say, well, they're fools and God will get them someday. They'll bow their knee someday and they'll be sorry. They'll be really sorry they didn't do it God's way and think according to the Bible. But overall, whether it's absolute truths or the presence of God, the glories of the grace of God, of being forgiven, especially if you really, really, really got convinced you're a true depraved sinner in need of God's grace, His presence, His salvation, His love becomes such a big deal to you that when it's gone, it is a truly unbearable void. Like, you can't stand it. You can't stand this huge void. It's like your whole family gets, everybody, not just your immediate family, but your extended family, your family past, your family present, your family future. It's like all of them just disappear in a moment. Like, I am profoundly, shockingly alone. And it hurts because God was more important than any family. God was more important than anybody in this world. And He was our eternal Father, our heavenly Father, our forever family. He was our security. He was our safety through everything in life. And then you lost it. That is an unbearable void. And it hurts so much. And when you realize that prayer was always one-sided, that you were talking to yourself, to the wall this whole time, that's painful. You wasted a lot of time talking to this God, and yes, you may have said, well, it gave me the maybe the side benefit of it calmed me down. It was like a form of meditation, and yeah, you could claim a little benefit here or there from it. It slowed your breathing down. It helped you to take a break from the day. But it was ultimately still a huge self-deception. And of course, a group deception as you pray in church and worship in church. But you lose your community. Speaking of church, you lose your community when you leave. This was your tribe. These were your people. And you know that you're going to become ostracized, or at least sidelined, by the people that meant the most to you. You're considered now a backslider, or a heretic, or an apostate. You're certainly considered foolish. You're certainly considered a wayward child. And you get endless amounts of patronization. You'll come back. You'll come back. You know in your heart of hearts that God is real. You can't look up at the night sky and not know that. You can't look at the face of a baby and not know that there's a God. It's so painful, and it all ends up being a version of spiritual PTSD, where your hypervigilance, your fear of damnation, this intrusive guilt, you're in so much angst at first, and you have to learn. I had to learn to reground myself. You have to learn to reground yourself at the beginning. Getting your bearings again is so critical in these scenarios. You're reframing the guilt. You're seeing these relics of manipulation, and you're ultimately you're reclaiming your life. You are reclaiming your life. and you're rebuilding your identity. You start by clarifying who you're not, in terms of escaping Christianity, but then you begin to clarify and discover who you are, even as basic as what your interests are, what your passions are. And it takes a while to discover that, because you're just so groundless for a while. You've had the carpet pulled out from under your feet. The freedom to question things, freedom to think for yourself, to be a true free thinker, and to start to heal from the trauma, to really recognize the flashbacks, the emotional, psychological flashbacks. And there were ways in which you were self-policing this whole time and judging yourself and condemning yourself, and you didn't realize it. And that's incredibly painful. You are learning to reframe these negative core beliefs. You're learning to develop self-compassion for the first time. Like, maybe I really am a good person. Maybe I'm okay. Maybe I'm not worthless. And you forgive yourself. That's a big piece of it. Was a big piece of it for me. You learn to forgive yourself for the years you were stuck in this, and you could argue very well, I should have known better. And I've said it before a million times, but just the simple teaching on circumcision should have been more than enough. And I know it's not the biggest issue in the room, but a God who demands you mutilate little boys' genitals, that should have been alone more than enough to say this is a bullshit worldview. And it wasn't. How is that true? How can that be true? How can that be true? And yet it wasn't. But here I am. And you learn to forgive yourself for not seeing the red flags. And I think maybe to wrap it up, because my kids are going to jump in the car here in a second, just the beauty of rediscovering the joy of life, the awe, the wonder. Replace all this fear that you had for so long, replace it with wonder. This world is not a battleground for demons and angels to fight. This world is not a battleground of sin versus righteousness, of God versus the devil, of your selfishness versus your surrendered self. It's just not. It's a beautiful place to explore. Life is an adventure. And what a beautiful thing to marvel at nature for the first time with fresh eyes, truly fresh eyes. It's an amazing journey. So empower yourself. Embrace the freedom. Embrace the freedom to create something new in your life. Replace yourself on your own time with the beautiful person that is you. And here are my kiddos. Here they come. Hey, Bugaboo, what'd you get? Everybody gets one. Take one and split one with Abby, and Owen gets one too.
I get uno, dos. No, you get uno. I get uno of one of yours.
All right, everybody.
Here, Abby. Oh.
Buckle up, buckle up, buckle up. Here we go.
Everyone gets two.
Buckle up quick before we leave the parking lot, please.
Daddy, can we go past? Because I have to go to the bathroom.
You got it. How's everybody doing today?
Good, good. Can we stop by the store? To get a Stanley.
Not at the moment, but we'll stop sometime this weekend.
Because the daddy said I'm getting a water bottle.
How was school today?
Great.
What'd you learn?
Lots of stuff.
What was the most fun part of the day for you?
Making my own company.
You made your own company?
Well, not a real company, it's a fake company, but at specials today I started my first company.
Nice.
Fake.
You may open it? You got it? I'll take your trash.
But we're really doing it on a computer.
Very cool. Can everyone look right up here? Everyone look in the middle. Everyone look at Daddy. Everyone say hi.
Hi.
Can everyone say your names?
Owen. Abby. Ethan.
And how old are you guys?
9. 8. 6.
And Owen, you're 9, but you're only 9 for a few more days. Isn't that true?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
She's gonna be 10.
Double digits. What?
Next week's
How crazy is that? Life flies by. Well, guys, I was just talking with my friends on YouTube about the idea of just rediscovering the joy of life. When you think about that, what comes to your minds? What makes you think life is beautiful and joyful?
Being with you.
And being with you is a joy for me too. I love it. I love your joy and how much you love to play and learn new things and have fun. Oh, and what makes life beautiful for you? Besides Minecraft.
Learning new things and making new friends.
Nice. And Ethan, what makes life joyful for you besides eating sweets? What's a fun part of your day? Maybe.
Being kind to others.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, everybody, thank you for letting me be a part of your day and share a few thoughts. I hope some of that is helpful, and I'm going to keep on trying to do these videos in the car to, number one, use my time wisely, but number two, there's so much in my mind. I'm working on a lot of presentations and monologues that are going to require me to be in the office for them, because I've got a lot of notes for some of them, but some of the things are going to be more stream of consciousness and just thinking through some big topics. But what's that? We could, but sometimes there's a lot of traffic that way, so I'm going to go this way. But keep looking for Cybertrucks. We might see one. I thank you all for being a part of my journey, and appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. And please let me know your thoughts. Everything I do, like when I chat in the car, is going to be sort of inviting just thoughts, because these are just random thoughts coming through my head. And I'd love to hear your feedback, and I'll eventually compile a lot of this stuff into a larger presentation. So any thoughts you have on this, on sort of that topic of now that you know what's happened to you, what next? Now that you know, and it's amazing, now that you understand, to me, like, that's a critical thing. Now that you understand what happened to you, everything changes. Number one, it's a lot more painful at first, but at least you have a chance, and a fighting chance, real fighting chance, to reclaim your identity. But once you understand what happened to you, the cool thing is you begin to get the tools to make sure that it never happens again. Never happens again. And that you get the tools to perceive the red flags before they ever happen again in your life. And you really get to take your power back. So much of this is about your power. Your power, your identity, your autonomy. It was all stolen from you. Heavily stolen. Don't ever see that as an exaggeration. We're not exaggerating when we say your identity was stolen by Christianity. It was completely, utterly, ridiculously, absurdly, horrendously stolen by a worldview that's based on mythology. And don't ever sell yourself short. Call it like it is. Get the vocabulary. This was an identity theft issue, and it's time to reclaim yourself. It's a beautiful journey, but you got to start by getting the tools in your toolbox, and that starts with understanding what happened, and then plotting your journey forward from there. But thank you all so much again for being part of my journey too, and I hope you have a great day.